Neil is truly terrifying. Hey everyone, Templar74 here with another Yu-Gi-Oh video, and today's Yu-Gi-Oh video is going to be my review of the latest episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's episode 23, That Which Lies Beyond Providence. And I gotta be honest with you guys, this episode was fantastic in my opinion. There were a lot of Easter eggs in this episode. We got an archetype return, which is always good, and this episode just truly demonstrates why Neil is so terrifying, and I do get some strange vibes off of him. But we'll talk about all this soon enough. So, at risk of further rambling though, let's move on to the actual episode. So the episode begins with Yuga and the gang, and they're walking towards Gate 66, the place they were told to go last episode. And as they're arriving, Rook announces to the gang that he's got a bad feeling about this. And they end up coming up to this rather friendly little sign here that says you only have 66 meters left before you get to Providence here. So it's kind of funny how the gate just opens and we get that. So there is that here. And ultimately they do walk the 66 meters ahead and arrive at the gate of Providence here. And this is a nice little comedic moment, I'm not going to lie. As we learn that the gate of Providence really is just like a market row. It's basically a road of shops for people to understand Neil and his providence here. And Neil, like I said, we got to talk about him because he's the elephant in the room here. He gives me some strange character vibes. When we saw Neil earlier on in the series, I knew that his voice sounded familiar, and I got to start with this. And I looked it up, and it turns out that Neil is voiced by the same voice actor as Kirito. And that's why I recognized that voice so instantly here. That was something that was bothering me through the episode, I will admit, so I had to Google that. And we also learned that Neil kinda is this version, or Seven's version of Akaba Reiji. That's the vibe he gives me, the kind of cool, calm, collected duelist that knows exactly what he's doing, he's got a plan for everything, and he sees the main protagonist as the ultimate goal here. And that's why I think Neil gives me so much Akaba Reiji vibes, is you just look at Neil's character and you would think those two could be brothers. So let's just put it that way. It was kind of interesting here to see that. So yeah, Neil's character gives off some very interesting character vibes. We also learned that Neil had managed to hack Rush Duels through Kaizo's data, and he now feels drawn to Rush Duels. He can't understand why he feels so drawn to Yuga's Road, but he realizes that he's being drawn to it. And again, this is another reason why I draw a parallel to Akaba Reiji here, because Akaba Reiji was drawn to Yuya because of pendulum summoning. Well, it turns out that Neil is getting drawn towards Yuga because of Rush Duels. So again, a very interesting dynamic here, and that's why I say that Neil, safe to say, this version of Yu-Gi-Oh's Akaba Reiji. Just going to call it now. And now for another Easter egg here, which is another reason why I think that Neil draws so much emphasis off of Reiji and gives me so many Reiji vibes here. Neil, we learn, is in basically the midst of a power struggle here. 5 of the top hexagons want to take over Neil's position as the Watcher of Duels. They feel he's got too much power, they want to overthrow him, and Neil is basically going to go after these 5 and basically destroys them, and he's even arrogant enough to point out, wait a minute, aren't there 6 in a hexagon? And they're like, well, the other one, we'll remove her next too. And it, of course, is Mimi, who wants no part of this takeover with Neil, feels that it's desperate tactics, it's dirty, she wants no part of it, and of course now she's going to be the target of elimination next here. Basically, they're sick and tired of Neil basically getting away with doing whatever he wants. They want to put an end to it. It's kind of reminiscent of the big 5, these 5 that are going to take on Neil. It is satisfying that they got destroyed by Neil, and we get an emphasis on how powerful and scary Neil is too, and that's another reason why I think he's this version of Akaba Reiji. I know I'm emphasizing that a lot, but it just goes to show because he's the closest character that I can draw parallels to in the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise. So anyway, Neil wipes out the power struggle against him, and he basically is like, we're going to do it on my terms, I want to do Rush Duels. They're like, okay, Neil wipes him out. So now we get drawn to what we had been waiting for, Neil versus Yuga. And Yuga's excited to do this duel, even though Neil confidently and arrogantly says, you have no chance of beating me. And we quickly learn why. Now, we weren't entirely sure what kind of deck Neil was going to use, but we got this answer pretty quickly. We learned that Neil uses the Cyberse archetype, which was a surprise. Was not expecting that. Basically, because Vrain's got the short end of the stick, it was shortchanged. It got cut nearly 100 episodes shorter than other Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, so we were like, wait a minute, Vrain's got the short end of the stick. Cyberse archetype here in Neil's deck, that kind of makes up for it, not really, but it kind of helps, and it was really a shock to see the Cyberse archetype back. And really, the Cyberse archetype is one of the better archetypes you can use right now in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because, I mean, you've got the Salaman Greats, you've got the Code Talkers, you have the Firewall series. Cyberse has arguably some of the most OP decks that you can use in Yu-Gi-Oh! So the fact that Neil is using a Cyberse deck is both extremely satisfying and extremely terrifying. Yeah, that's basically the dynamic with Neil. Satisfying, yet terrifying. And we learned this because Neil not only does this, he brings out a new summoning method called the Maximum Summon, as he dubs it. And he brings out this huge dragon, this chimera-looking dragon, and he calls it the Yug Dragon, Heavenly Emperor Dragon tree, and it's got 4,000 attack points. This thing, basically when I saw it, it was like, oh gosh, this is giving me Egyptian god archetype vibes here, because you've got an OP monster that is just gigantic, it's scary, it basically, you see it and you're like, oh, you are so bleeped. And yeah, you see this and you're like, oh no. And of course, 4,000 attack points. Yuga has no defense against it. And Neil just obliterates Yuga. And that's where the episode ends off, with Neil just destroying Yuga. And basically anybody that's confronted Neil so far has been destroyed. And that, again, just goes to show why Neil is so powerful and terrifying. And yeah, that was essentially the episode. Like I said, Neil here is really giving me some Akaba Reggie vibes. The Easter eggs in this episode were a delight as well. Seeing the Cyberse archetype, was not expecting that here. And Neil's Ace Monster. Yuga Dragon, Heavenly Emperor Dragon Tree. This thing is just badass. I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. It's badass. The Maximum Summon, did not see that coming either. This episode literally checked all the boxes. And this episode, I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say this episode was probably the best Sevens episode we've had to date, maybe barring the first couple of episodes and then the brief arc with Otis's return with Roa. Barring those two, I would say this episode is the best episode, and I would even argue that this episode is better than them. That episode was just this great. And with that said, everybody, as far as an episode ranking, I give this episode a 9 out of 10. Literally could not rank this episode much higher. I want to go so far as to say it's perfection, but this episode was extremely satisfying. It was light on the comedy, strong on the action, strong on the suspense, and Neil is just a terrifying character. There's no other way I can say it. Neil is just a terrifying character. No way around it. But as always, everybody, those were my thoughts on this week's episode of Sevens. As always, in the comments section down below, let me know what your guys' thoughts were about this week's episode. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was just there? What were your thoughts? Just let me know in the comments section down below, because as always, I enjoy hearing from you. Alright, everyone, as always, Templar74 signing off. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll talk to you all next time. Goodbye, everybody. Hey everyone, Templar74 here. Did you enjoy the video? Do you want to help support me in making more content like this and see your name here at the end of every video? Then consider supporting me on Patreon. Any help is greatly appreciated and will help ensure continuation and increase the quality of production of the videos that I'm able to make for all of you. Link down below. Again, thank you so much for your support and for liking and subscribing. You all are amazing. And as always, everyone, Templar74 signing off. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll talk to you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.